Great to see you, Oleg, and thanks to
Always.
TOKEN2049 for having us. Great to be here. So we have 13 minutes and 48 seconds of unadulterated access to Oleg. Would you like to start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and about Sweat?
Yeah. So my name is Oleg. I'm one of the co-founders of Sweatcoin, which was a Web2 original business that we started in 2014. So we've been at it for 10 years. And in 2022, we have discovered Near Protocol, which was fast enough and robust enough for us to build on, because we have 164 million users and counting. And at such scale, you cannot build on any chain, pretty much. There are just a couple that can actually support that. So yeah, very, very happy about our partnerships. And yeah, also, we were probably the first big scale one that joined, and then Kai Ching and Play Amber. So yeah, like dominoes are starting to fall. This is really amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, and for audience context, we're very fortunate in the Near ecosystem to have some of the biggest projects in Web3, some of the biggest apps, of which Sweat is one.
Yeah.
And you know, like you mentioned, like the scale that you guys operate at is pretty unprecedented for Web3. What was behind your thinking, you know, of making Near your home?
Well, there were three things that, well, actually, you know, let me take a step back. In 2021, when we realized that technology, or blockchain technology, started to get robust and fast enough, we looked at everything that was out there, and we've done really proper due deal and, you know, talking to founders, talking to teams, BD, technical, and we've of course done quite a lot of testing. You know, on test nets, building some contracts. And one thing that we figured out was that it is impossible to compare blockchains between them. You know, everyone is talking about completely different things, and they are accentuating aspects that make it incomparable. Let me give you an example. Everyone is talking about transactions per second. Solana, for example, defines transaction as any message between any node and any node, instead of the actual transaction where the assets are changing hand. So even the definitions are different. What we've done then, we kind of went, okay, we don't really know how to evaluate all of this information. So we went back to first principles and we asked ourselves, what do we want? We want to have a partner that builds for mass market, because that is what we are. Second, we wanted to have a partner that's got the best UX, because that's really what matters for mass adoption. And third, which was more of a hygiene, that the chain is fast enough and cheap enough from kind of transaction perspective, so that, you know, kind of using chain does not eat into our users' pockets. And basically, we looked at these three things, and there were only 2 or 3 chains that actually, you know, kind of ticked most of the boxes. And luckily for Near, that was the time when Solana was going down, like 19 hours one week, 5 hours another week. And we, of course, having so many users, we could not say, ooh, you know what, let's build on Solana. We were just chickening out. And, you know, also, the more time we spend with Ilya, the better it was getting. Actually, our first contract was built by Ilya. He just knocked it together in 15 minutes, sent it over to us, and said, you know, what do you think of this?
And that's Ilya Polosukhin, co-founder of the protocol.
Yeah, and my team was like, holy shit. You know, the GitHub is saying that, you know, Ilya Polosukhin actually wrote this code. So everyone was really taken aback.
Yeah, well, he's a hands-on guy, and he saw the value of the partnership, right? And you're right. I think that conversation about the robustness of the infrastructure has come to the fore again. You know, Solana and others have been struggling in some contexts with really high transaction volumes, and leading to transaction failures. And you know, the Near protocol is a sharded layer 1, and so in theory has infinite scalability. And I think something that the core protocol team is very proud of is they've had 100% uptime.
Yeah.
since mainnet launch, which I think is an amazing feat. But I think also recently they've been doing a lot of work expanding the number of shards. They're also working on something called stateless validation, which will further bolster the performative capabilities of the underlying protocol.
Yeah.
But I think before we dive more into, I guess, the technical features of the ecosystem, I wanted just to take a step back and ask you, as a founder, in a Web2 business originally, what was it that caused you to want to make that leap into Web3? What was driving that decision?
Great question. Our business that we created in 2014 was called Sweatcoin, and as the name would suggest, we actually wanted it to be on blockchain back then. The problem was that there was only one blockchain, which was Bitcoin, and it's too slow, too expensive, too cumbersome to build on. And we spoken to Vitalik in 2015, but ultimately we launched centralized because we were hoping that within the next 6 months something would come out. That would be another project that we would be able to build on. And the reason why we were so insistent, and we had to wait 8 years, but we really, really insisted on it, is because our vision has always been that we need to create a liquid asset that is your tokenized physical activity. You cannot do that with a centralized point system that only operate within the app. It needs to be freely tradable. It needs to be on exchanges so that there is actually completely kind of arm's length pricing. Because what we realized is that physical activity has a lot of parallels with attention. And the attention economy is $7 trillion in size. And it is built around you paying attention. You being active is extremely similar to you paying attention. Both actions are valuable to you. Both actions have third parties that are willing to pay for it. Advertisers for attention, healthcare providers, insurers, ultimately governments are very interested in physical activity, and they are prepared to incentivize you for that. And the third aspect is both are scarce. You don't have an unlimited amount of attention. You don't have an unlimited amount of calories and time to be physically active. Now you put two and two together, we built $7 trillion business or industry around one, and the other, universally, everyone agrees it is valuable, but when you ask a question, how much, everyone kind of goes, what do you mean? If something is valuable, then there's got to be a price on it, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're tokenizing physical activity, and we are driving its value up, because when you're rewarded for your physical activity with a token, it does change behavior. It makes the world more physically active, which is ultimately our mission and our objective.
And so, I think you're taking one of the features of blockchain infrastructure, which is this kind of open incentive structure to incentivize this behavior, which is, it's good for everyone to be more physically active and to be healthy.
Yeah.
But I think you also touched on another point that I wanted to just pick at, which is, you talked about the value of the data that is generated from these types of activities.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about it earlier. Actually, that's very sensitive information, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of organizations, traditional organizations, that would want to get their hands on that.
Yeah.
And I think in the current paradigm, that would be done often in a way that's not transparent. It's not something that users would fully understand. They might not get remunerated for it. Could you talk us through how the kind of a Web3 implementation that you settled on can help reset that dynamic a little bit?
Great question. This is not something that's going to happen in the next week or next month, but it is definitely going to happen. The data question for us is very sensitive because we are in Europe. The data is in Europe. We are governed by GDPR, but this is just a regulatory framework. What matters is that we do not believe, ultimately, that it is up to us to share or sell the data. We've never done it. We don't do it, and we never will do it. However, what blockchain enables and allows us to do is to partner with a data union. You're probably familiar with the concept. And basically, we can allow you, user, to make a decision that I will open my data for analytics. So you can make this decision, not us. And then this data lake is going to be analyzable. And we know that this data is immensely valuable because we already had a number of partnerships with insurers that were on the surface, kind of doing weird and wonderful product things, but under the surface, all they were interested in is data, granular, detailed data, so that they could put it into their actuarial models. It is incredibly valuable for them. We did not follow through, but we do know that it is immensely valuable. Now, when you unlock this data and make it available, and somebody analyzes, they will use Sweat to pay for it, and you will get the biggest chunk of that value if your data is unlocked, and a certain percentage will go as rewards to the whole community and token holders. So all of a sudden, we can monetize data because it is not us making decision, but the user.
Yeah, so I think in that is all about empowerment, right? So you're flipping the controls and power dynamics away from the providers to the individual end users, which is a fundamental part of the open web, right? And I think that that is one of the most important features of an open paradigm. And at the NIR Foundation, we're all about supporting the emergence of an open web. And so I wondered, and you touched on this, and we don't have a huge amount of time, but maybe time for two more questions. One, you talked about user experience being really important, something that is really challenging for Web3 right now. How have you guys navigated through that, and how have you, trying to meet Web2, but in the Web3 paradigm, and that's how we bring users into Web3?
Great question. Actually, on this note, and given the fact that we have just more than 2 minutes, this is our core strengths, building incredible products on mobile that millions of people use. We've been at it, as I mentioned, for 10 years, and we have 164 million users on Sweatcoin and more than 10 million users on Sweat Wallet. This is huge, huge, huge scale and learning curve that we've gone through. And we continue innovating, and there are actually 3 things that are going live today. So if you do have Sweat Wallet, if you were to restart it, you will be able to use it in Arabic. That was the most frequently requested language by our user base. And the team has enabled it very, very early in this morning. So if you have an Arabic, if you're living here and you have setting on Arabic, your phone, your Sweat Wallet is going to speak Arabic to you. The second thing that we're starting to do today is roll out something that we haven't touched on, but chain abstraction narrative that NIR was talking about. Basically, as from today, we're becoming a multi-chain wallet, and we will gradually enable this functionality. So you will be able to use not just NIR, you will also have BNB chain. And we have enabled that, and we're not going to roll it out to 100% of users because that would be kind of extremely risky given that the infrastructure is very new. But we're starting to roll it out from today. So don't be surprised if you discover that you actually have BNB in your wallet. And the third thing is, you call it fast auth, we call it magic keys. And
the onboarding tool.
Yeah, exactly. So our users have the best onboarding that works in Web 2, but now we're going to make it even better, and you will be able to recover, so from security perspective, your account, not by having an activation email that a lot of people deleted by accident, but as long as you have control over the email address, you will always be able to regain command of your account.
So it's simplifying and making the account management more familiar. Exactly.
It just makes it fluid and really, really, really easy without any cognitive overload for users.
So it lowers the barrier to entry, which is what we're all about.
Yeah.
And we're out of time, but I want to do a quick shout out to say, what you just referred to with chain signatures technology, which effectively allows you to manage digital assets in any blockchain environment from your near account, is hugely powerful innovation. It was just launched a couple of weeks ago. All the documentation is on near.org. Oleg is pioneering it in our ecosystem, and we're seeing the power of it, and we're very grateful to him for that. But I think on that note, we've got to wrap up. We're at time. So thank you so much, Oleg, for the conversation, and thanks all for listening.